I was mid-set at the gym when the music cut out and two officers walked toward me. I lowered the weights and stood still. My sister followed behind them, arms crossed, voice sharp enough for everyone to hear. "That's her." No one stopped her. No one asked questions. Phones paused. Eyes stayed on me. At the front desk, an officer held up a screen with my name under the words fraud and theft. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I asked one thing. What time was the report filed? He checked his tablet, then my check-in history, and went quiet. The gym manager stood behind the counter, hands folded, eyes fixed on the register like it might save him from choosing a side. He knew me. I trained there 5 mornings a week. I paid on time. I followed rules. Still, he said nothing. The officers asked me to step aside, and the front desk cleared space like this was routine. My sister stayed close, narrating with small laughs, explaining things no one had asked. She talked about money, about trust, about how she had tried to warn people. No one stopped her. One officer read from the report again, slower this time. The words sounded heavier when spoken out loud. Fraud, unauthorized access, intent. He asked if I understood the accusations. I nodded once. My mouth felt dry, but my hands were steady. I noticed small details. The clock above the treadmills, the sweat marks on the floor, the way 2 women near the mirrors pretended not to stare, then stared anyway. I asked again for the filing time. The officer glanced at his partner, then back at his tablet. He gave it to me. I didn't touch it. I just leaned close enough to see. The time was clear. The location was listed as my sister's address, not mine. I looked up and met her eyes for the first time. She smiled, like this was going exactly how she planned. The officer asked where I had been at that hour. I pointed to the wall where my check-in history scrolled on a small screen near the lockers. I train on a schedule. Same days, same times. My app logs everything. Heart rate, location, duration. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rush. I waited while he compared the times. Something shifted. The officer's posture changed. His shoulders relaxed. He turned slightly away from me and asked my sister a question, quiet enough that the room leaned in. She answered too fast, too confidently. He asked another. She crossed her arms tighter. The gym manager finally spoke. He said he could pull footage if needed. His voice shook, not from fear for me, from fear of being involved. The officers nodded. One asked me to sit while they made a call. I sat on a bench, breathing slow, listening to my sister's heels tap the rubber floor as she paced. I thought about how easy this had been for her, how prepared she sounded, how certain she was that authority would land where she pointed it. This wasn't new. She had always spoken first, loudest. She had learned early that confidence could cover gaps in truth. And people often let it. The call ended. The officer returned my tablet and thanked me for cooperating. He told me they needed to clarify a few things. He didn't apologize. He didn't need to. His job wasn't to protect me from embarrassment. It was to follow procedure. My sister asked what was happening. The officer told her they needed to speak privately. Her smile slipped, just for a second. Enough for me to see it. As they walked toward the door, the room slowly exhaled. Music came back on. People looked away. The gym returned to itself. I picked up my water bottle and wiped down the bench. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. That was the moment I understood something important. This wasn't about a lie in the heat of emotion. It was about how easily systems listen to the wrong voice when it sounds sure enough. My sister and I grew up learning different lessons from the same house. I learned to wait. She learned to speak first. When our parents divorced, she stayed with our mother. I moved between places, adjusting. She learned that attention arrived fastest when delivered with certainty. I learned that certainty invited questions. The gym incident fit a pattern I had ignored for years. Small things at first. Stories she told about me that I corrected later quietly. Requests she made in my name without asking. She borrowed tools, then money, then time. Each time, she explained it away as confusion. Each time, people nodded. It was easier than checking. I remembered a holiday when a package went missing. She told everyone I had taken it by mistake. I found it weeks later in her trunk, unopened. She laughed and said she forgot. The room laughed with her. I learned to let it go. I told myself it was family. I told myself silence kept peace. Work followed the same pattern. When we were younger, she asked for references, then used my credentials to open accounts she managed. I closed them quietly when notices arrived. She said she was overwhelmed. I believed her because believing her required less effort than proving her wrong. Money was where the lines blurred most. She needed help. I helped. She needed access. I limited it. She complained that limits meant distrust. People agreed with her. They always do when someone frames boundaries as cruelty. After the officers left the gym, my phone filled with messages. Concern dressed as curiosity. Screenshots of my sister's posts, already shaping the story. Words like victim and betrayal floated without anchors. No one asked me first. They rarely do when a narrative arrives prepackaged. I didn't respond. I saved everything. Times, screens, locations. The gym app logs synced automatically. Security footage requests went out through the manager. The officers emailed a follow-up. Neutral language. Procedure continuing. Nothing dramatic. That night, I opened a folder I keep for boring things. Receipts, statements, agreements. I added a new subfolder and labeled it with the date. I didn't title it with her name. Patterns don't need names to be real. As I sorted, I saw the same moves repeated. A request, a delay, a story told ahead of verification. Authority approached first. Me approached last. The result depended on speed, not truth. She was fast. I was careful. Careful can look like guilt to people waiting for sound bites. By morning, the feeling I had carried for years finally settled into focus. I wasn't dealing with a single lie. I was dealing with a system she had practiced using because it worked. And it worked because I kept fixing the aftermath instead of stopping the entry. I went to the gym early and trained as usual. The routine mattered. Consistency leaves records. Records outlast volume. I knew that now. I stopped thinking about convincing anyone. I started thinking about sequence. Sequence changes outcomes. I scheduled a meeting with the officers the next day and brought nothing but timelines. I let them ask. I answered briefly. Dates aligned. Locations matched. The questions slowed. Their tone changed. I watched my sister fill the silence with explanations that wandered. I noted how often she corrected herself. I didn't interrupt. I thanked them for their time and left with a case number. Not sympathy. Systems don't need belief. They need order. I wrote down, filed it away, and prepared to stop absorbing impact meant for someone else's choices going forward without noise or apology. The boundary was crossed the next week, quietly, the way serious things often are. I received a notice from my bank asking me to verify activity on an account I rarely used. The email was routine. The tone was neutral. The attachment showed a request for temporary authorization made in person, using my name, my identification number, and an address I had not lived at for years, my sister's address. I didn't call her. I didn't call the bank either. Not yet. I opened my records and checked timestamps. The request had been made the morning after the gym incident, less than 12 hours later. While the police were still clarifying their report, she had tried again, this time through a different system. That was when something inside me finally settled. Not anger, not sadness, just an ending. I drove to the branch with my folder under my arm. The manager met me in a glass office and spoke softly, like volume might change facts. I laid out the documents in order. Gym check-in logs, the police case number, the prior authorizations I had revoked months earlier. The new request highlighted. He didn't interrupt. When he finished reading, he looked up and asked a single question. Is this person still authorized to act on your behalf? No, I said. He nodded and typed. Access was removed. Notes were added. A flag was placed on my profile. He explained the process without apology or reassurance. This wasn't personal. It was procedural. Outside, I sat in my car for a minute before starting the engine. I realized I hadn't hoped she would stop. I had hoped I could keep pretending this wasn't who she was. That hope expired there, in a parking lot, with the engine off. The next contact came from a mutual friend who thought she was helping. She said my sister was worried and wanted to clear things up. She suggested a conversation. I declined. I didn't explain why. Explanations invite negotiations. I was done negotiating. My sister sent messages. Long ones, then shorter ones, then voice notes that started calm and ended sharp. She said I was overreacting. She said families handle things internally. She said I was making her look bad. She never asked if I was okay. She never asked what she could fix. She asked what I was going to do. I archived everything. The police followed up with their findings. No charges filed against me. The report was amended. The original complaint was marked inaccurate. I wasn't asked to press charges. I wasn't encouraged either way. They explained my options and left the choice where it belonged. I chose nothing. That decision confused people more than any confrontation would have. They expected a scene, a statement, a post. Silence felt like punishment to them because they couldn't measure it. At the gym, the staff treated me carefully for a while. Then normally, routine returned. Routine always does. My sister stopped coming. I didn't ask why. What mattered was that I no longer rearranged my life to absorb her chaos. I stopped checking what she said about me. I stopped correcting stories that weren't addressed to me. I kept my records current. I kept my access tight. I kept my days predictable. Belonging stopped being the goal. Accuracy replaced it. The consequences arrived without an announcement. No dramatic calls. No confrontations. Just a series of quiet confirmations that systems had adjusted to new information. The bank sent a follow-up letter noting restricted access and internal review. The gym manager emailed to confirm updated incident notes and footage retention. The police closed the case with an amended summary and a brief line stating the complaint had been unfounded. Nothing else was required from me. My sister found ways to expose herself without my involvement. She called the bank to complain and contradicted her own earlier statements. She emailed the gym demanding records she was not entitled to. She posted about being mistreated by institutions that refused to listen. Each message created its own timestamp. Each complaint added context she couldn't erase. Friends asked why I wasn't fixing things. I told them I was letting them resolve naturally. Some didn't understand. A few stopped asking. I noticed who stayed quiet with me and who needed noise to feel comfortable. That sorting happened on its own. Weeks later, I received a certified letter. It wasn't from the police or the bank. It was from an employer she had recently applied to. They requested verification after discrepancies surfaced during a background check. I responded with dates only. No commentary. No conclusions. Facts don't need emphasis. After that, the messages slowed. Then stopped. I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter. The energy I had spent managing fallout returned to my routines. Morning workouts. Workdays without interruptions. Evenings that didn't require rehearsing conversations that would never happen. At the gym, someone new asked if I wanted a spot. I said yes. We trained. We nodded. No one mentioned the past. That was fine. I ran into my sister once, months later, at a grocery store. She looked past me like I wasn't there. I let her. Silence had become mutual. It was the most honest thing between us in years. When people talk about justice, they imagine a moment, a verdict, a speech. That wasn't how it arrived for me. It arrived as alignment, as access removed, as records corrected, as attention shifting away from performance and back to process. I didn't need to prove who I was. The systems did that when given time. I kept the folder for a while, then archived it. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I no longer needed to be ready. Boundaries held. Patterns ended when they stopped being fed. Some relationships dissolve loudly. Others dissolve when the incentives disappear. I didn't lose everything that day at the gym. I lost the habit of protecting someone else's lies, and that was enough.